Alright, so we are now in part 2. Configure single area OSPF version 2. So these are the tasks. Configure the OSPF routing process, manually configure the router ID, and configure network statement. So we're going to do this in routers, the two routers. So this time I'm going to go directly to the routers by clicking it. And then configure the necessary task. Okay, so we have password is Cisco and pass. I think Cisco on pass. Cisco. I think Cisco and pass. Oh, sorry. Cisco on pass. Enable Cisco and pass. All right. So let us configure the OSPF. First task is configure the OSPF routing process with the use of process ID 1. So config the router OSPF1 as the router ID, and then the router ID is 001, router-ID 0.0.0.1. So that is based on requirement, enter. And then let us configure the network statement using in order to advertise the network, we need to configure all the directly connected networks. So let us see. Let us check, do show IP route. Let us check the connected network. So these are the directly connected network. /29, /30, and this one. So let us configure network 10.67. I know that 52. Let us first the one that 52.0.0. /29 is equivalent to .7 as the wildcard mask. 0.0.0. That /29 is equivalent to .7. So you know already how to get the wildcard mask. Area 0. Enter. Then another network is 10.67. Dot 254.0 /30 is equivalent to .3. Right, and then area 0. Enter. And then another network is 192. This is 192.168. 192.168. That's 0 and that 255 as the wildcard mask. Then enter. So those are the network statement. Right, so after that, exit. Okay, so done with the configuration of OSPF in router 1. Let's move on router 2. click on router 2 directly without the use of a console table. So Cisco on pass, enable Cisco and pass, Cisco and pass, config D, router OSPF1, and then router dash ID is 0.0.0.2 based on the requirements. And let us define the network also. Okay, for R2, loopback address network should not be included in the OSPF process. Yes, because the router 2 is simulating the connection to the internet, so no need to include that in the routing process, OSPF routing process. So we don't need to use, we don't need to define the router OSPF in router 2 in the network statement. So network by the way, so do show IP route connected. So let us define the connected networks. So network, the first one is 10.67.1.0. The wildcard mask is 0.0.0.255, area 0, enter. And the other network is 10.67.254, 254. Is 254 is last 3 that as the wildcard mask, and then area 0. Okay, so loopback address is not included, so exit. Okay, so copy, run, start to save. Okay, done with the configuration of OSPF. Let us proceed with part 3. Part 3 is the optimization, optimize single area OSPF. First, we need to configure R1 with the following tasks. Configure passive interface. So in R1, we're going to define which interface will be declared as passive. The passive interface from R1 is G001. We need to declare this as passive interface because there is no router side. And also the loopback address should configure to be a passive interface so that it will not advertise the advertisement of router in that interface. Okay, so let's proceed with R1. In R3, configure R1. Config T. So to define the passive interface, use the command router OSPF1 passive dash interface G0/0/1. So we need to declare that as passive, and also the passive dash interface loopback 0. Okay, and then configure the reference bandwidth. So we need to adjust the reference bandwidth to 1 gigabit to autocorrect the reference bandwidth. So based on given, we need to adjust to the bandwidth to 1 gigabit. So to do that, command is auto dash cost reference dash bandwidth bandwidth 1000. Okay, so 1000 is equivalent to 1 gigabit. All right, enter. So disregard just disregard this message. And then after that, we need to exit. Exit. And then configure loopback 0 as point-to-point. So we need to configure the loopback 0 to report the mask. It is configured with instead of a host mask. So to do that, we need to configure loopback 0 as point-to-point network. So interface loopback 0, enter, IP OSPF network point-to-point. All right, and then the next requirements is tune the timers for your network, configure the hello timer, that is the interval timer for 30 seconds. So to do that, you do that in G00 because this is where the OSPF is advertising the network. So we need to configure the interval in G0/0. So interface G0/0/0 IP OSPF hello dash interval 30. Okay, so exit. Done with the requirements for configuring number router 1. So copy, start. Let's proceed to router number 2, but this time step 2 for configuring router 2. These are the tasks to be done. So click router 2 and then based on the requirements we need to configure the following. Configure the passive interface as well, and this is to be in G00 also. Config T. So interface passive dash interface G0/0/1 going to the switch. Sorry. Should be G0 passive router OSPF1 passive dash interface G0/0/1. Wrong spelling. All right, and then also the loopback passive dash interface loopback 0 is wrong spelling. I'm sorry. And then the same, provide the default. The next is configure the reference bandwidth, the same 1 gigabit. So auto does cost reference dash bandwidth 1000, enter, and then need to exit. The next task is provide default routing for OSPF domain. So since that is simulating the internet connection, we need to configure the default route. So IP, using the command IP route 0.0.0.0 space 0.0.0.0, so that quad 0. And then since the interface going out to the internet is the loopback address, we use the interface exit interface as loopback. Next in the next hop is loopback 0. Okay. Point to point may impact performance. Just disregard the message, and then let us exit. Config T, and then we need to default we need to go to router OSPF1, and then default we need to advertise the redistribute default information in information originate command, and then exit. And then the timer, configure the hello timer also in the G00 interface G0/0 of router 2, and then IP OSPF hello interval 30 seconds, and then IP OSPF tune the DR/BDR election to favor R2. So we need to set the priority of R2 to value 50. Router OSPF priority 50. Alright, and then exit. Done with the requirements. Okay, so copy, run start. Right, so done with step number 2 under the optimize single array OSPF. So we are now ready for part 4, configuring access control links, NAT, and perform configuration backup using TFTP.